Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, as you've seen there, we've got Mr. Muhammad Bello Shehu, who is the chairman, Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission. What else you call it? RMAFC, right?
RMAFC. But that's the abbreviation, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what people say.
What did they call it, RMAFC?
Yeah, Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission. The short this thing of it is RMAFC.
I told you.
Okay. Well, others say RMAFC, you know, straightforward.
That's a mouthful, Chamberlain.
Oh, okay. There you go. All right, but the agency has been raising a lot of concern. Some say dust concerning that statement about increasing, reviewing political office holders, judicial office workers' salaries. Now, I think what a lot of people gleaned from that was that you are going to increase the salaries. I mean, I think it stems from your visit to the governor of Sokoto State, Tambuwal,
yes,
where you said that all was set,
yes,
to ensure that this happens. Of course, you know, people will always ask questions. So, well, why do you tell us what informed that decision?
Well, constitutionally speaking, the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission in the Constitution has about 5 items that is our constitutional responsibility, apart from what is stated in the Act. One of which is the monitor the accruals and disbursement of revenue to the entire federation from the federation account, which means that every month we sit with Ministry of Finance and other stakeholders to look at what is coming into the federation account and disburse it appropriately based on what the revenue allocation formula stated. That's number one. Number two is review from time to time revenue allocation formula, which is the formula which the sharing of whatever accrued to the federation goes to all the federating units, states, federal and local governments.
That is interesting. So that's within the purview of RMAFC.
Yes.
The distribution, the percentage that the federal government gets,
exactly,
what the states get, and what the local government
exactly.
Get.
Exactly.
And I'm sure you're aware in recent times that there have been agitation. I hate to, interrupt your thoughts. You're still telling us your duties. But I'm sure you've been aware that in recent times there have been agitations towards reducing what the federal government gets in favor of both the states and local governments. I will come to that. If
you give me time, I will come and explain that. And then the third issue is to advise the federal and state governments on fiscal efficiency, a method by which their revenues can be increased and enhanced. And then, of course, determine the remuneration appropriate for political office holders, which is governors, president, legislators, as well as the judicial officers. This is the Chief Judge of the Federation, Chief Judge of the High Court, judges, and other things. If you look at Section 84 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, and discharge any other function as may be assigned by the President or the National Assembly. So these are our functions. This is what we do. And the last time this remuneration was looked into was back in 2007 to 2008, when there was an act, to the President and National Assembly and became a law. And from that time to now, we have not done anything about it. Currently, you are all aware that there is this serious agitation for review of the revenue of judges. Not revenue, salary of judges. It will interest you to know that if you hire a judge today, a judge that had been in the system for 20 years will receive the same salary with the judge that had been hired today. That's the law, that's what it is. So, and also there is an order from the President based on the lawsuit that was put in by some of these agitators and others on the salary of judges. I'm sure you are aware, where a judge ordered that judges should be paid like
10 million?
10 million a month. So the President set up a committee And the committee made recommendation, and he ordered the Attorney General of the Federation to liaise with Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission to look into this and, come up with something. So we are not only looking at that, we feel that it's time to review the entire package. Review does not mean that we're going to increase it, or we're going to reduce it, or it's going to remain some. We're going to look at all other issues, and these things are done scientifically. And this is what we do. So it's not anything that is new to the commission, and I think it's about time for this thing to be done. I will give you an example. The appointee of the president as an ambassador, if that person is not a career ambassador, that means the president picked like General T.Y. Brute or AVM Usman or General Olani Shakin, who was the immediate past Chief of Defense Staff, post him to place like Chad, Cameroon, wherever, and ask him to become an ambassador. His salary, according to what is on the ground, is the salary of a deputy director in any of the federal services. That's what it is. So we find that as an aberration. Somebody who had reached the highest pinnacle of his career in the military, and then you bring him in and said, go and be my ambassador, my representative, but he's dealing with people that have higher salary than him. A director in the Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So there are a lot of lapses there. So this is what has informed us to do this exercise now. It's not true that we are just trying to put a bonus or a jumbo package for president and governors and legislators. And contrary to what a lot of people perceive and believe to be so, that legislators and senators have jumbo salary. No. There is no legislator, no senator, no minister that earns over ₦1 million a month.
We'll come to that,
in Nigeria.
There's an outstanding question you need to respond to.
Yes,
Yeah, the question I was asking about the allocation, when you talked about how you advise, you also, give, distribute the allocation in favor of federal government, states, and local government. Yeah. Can you do that without a constitutional amendment?
We cannot do that. We have to do it within what the Constitution says. Revenue allocation formula. The framers of the Constitution designed it in such a way that Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission will be the body that will be looking into this. The Constitution says after 5 years, this thing may be reviewed. But it will interest you and your audience to know that what we have now is from the Modification Act signed by Ngozi Uwala and President Olusegun Obasanjo. There was a time when they discovered that even FCT cannot be funded based on what was the existing law. So there had to be a certain device whereby a certain percentage of the revenue allocation formula was assigned to, they were called special funds. FCT gets 1%, Ecological Fund gets 1% out of the share of the federal government, and then there is the Natural Resources Development Fund, which is 1.68%, and then there is stabilization, which is 0.50%. Stabilization is to assist any state that is in distress in terms of revenue generation internally, and some things that are beyond their control, just like what we have in Cross River State after the ceding of Bakassi to Cameroon. There were many Nigerians that decided they don't want to be part of Cameroon, they want to come back to Nigeria. And the president, from Obasanjo down to the current president, continued to assign $500 billion monthly out of that stabilization fund to Cross River State so that they can assist those people and provide accommodation.
Is that still going on now?
It's still going on, yes.
Okay.
You understand?
All right. We've since been joined by Awa Musarraf Sanjani, Executive Director of the Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, CISLAC. He's also the Head, Transparency International Nigeria, and Chair, Board of Trustees, Amnesty International Nigeria. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, in terms of the modalities, how you carry out this, we understand that you consult CSOs like his. Is that the procedure before you come to a conclusion?
Yes. We engage all stakeholders, from people like him, my good friend that I haven't seen since what, 2000 or what?
Yeah,
13, 14?
That's right. Yeah.
So he obviously wasn't consultant on this
In
one.
New York, right?
That's right.
Okay. So in New York,
we consult them. We consult every other stakeholder. And before we embark on this exercise, you're going to see advertisement asking Nigerians to contribute and debate this, you know. So everybody is invited. When the advert comes, they can give their opinion. We met the Ministry of Statistics, not the Ministry of Statistics, the Statistics General of the Federation.
yeah.
And we look at all the parameters,
All right.
the economics, you know, what is prevailing on the ground.
We'll hope to come to that
The
bit
cost of living.
as we progress. But I will give us the benefit of your opinion, since your organization is likely going to be will be consulted as part of the CSO. So what's your impression about this stance by RMAFC?
Okay, thank you very much, and good morning, viewers. Our position on this issue is that given the serious economic crisis that the nation is facing, and the fact that we're actually running a very expensive public administration system in the country, and given our revenue, flow in the country, we thought that while we are not against having appropriate remuneration for public official, but this also has to be, looked into how the nation income is and the sustainability of it. Because one of the major things that we have noted is that these incentives is what is bringing political violence and making the politics in the country do or die. Because some people believe that once they are there, it's not just the allowance and the salary. There are so many unofficial, because of lack of accountability in the system, so many unaccountable resources going into some public officials. For example, as a legislator, it's not, well, the Senate president is quoted to have said that they earn only 1.5. However, the 13 million that people are talking about, according to him, it is just their monthly or quarterly running cost. I mean, a professor who has been in the university for 30 years lecturing, his salary, his earning is not up to 450,000 naira. You have a public official, appointee, or even elected, going with this huge packet. Definitely, there's no fairness in it. Secondly, up to now, as I speak to you, Nigerian workers have been battling with so many states government just to agree with 30,000 minimum wage. Many of the state governors are saying they cannot afford to do that. But look at what, at various levels, at the state and national level, look at what public officials who, some of them are even dropped out. A professor who has spent 30 years teaching, contributing to the growth and development of the country is not considered. So what our own concern was that what they have come up with should have been automatically something that should progress, that should go on. We don't need to wait until 10 years or 12 years to do incremental salaries and allowance based on our own income. But they have waited since the last they said they have done this was 2008. Definitely, this doesn't show efficiency. And therefore, in our opinion, this large jumbo salary to some of the political office holders, it's not really going to translate to anything, either efficiency or accountable governance. For example, some of them is even duplication. You recall Obasanjo was a former president under the military. Buhari was a former president under the military. They have enjoyed, or rather they are still enjoying, more resources. The question is that, is revenue mobilization working to ensure that public officials, whether as a governor or as a senator, are not collecting duplication of allowances?
Well, how? By being what, a governor?
For example, you serve as a governor for 8 years in your state, and you have even made, some of them, they even made a law to be collecting permanent, pension and gratuity. It's only in Nigeria you see public officials who will come and legislate such kind of law. So you serve as governor, for 4 years or 8 years. You have already been paid for.
Okay, so, I mean, well, I'm sure that, DJ Rampa can respond to that, and I'm sure that, he'll take that on. But what I would like to know is, because oftentimes when we think of public office holders, we only think of the politicians. And it would seem that, there's not a lot of love lost between politicians and the general Nigerian public. But when you also think of the fact that judges, for instance, are also caught up in this snare, can one really say, even though the Ramfak boss has also said that, we're not saying we're reviewing it upwards or downwards, but from what he has described, the fact that we have not done this in a very long time, and when you look at how inflation has proceeded in our country, the chances that this is going to be an upward review is very high. So can we really say that we cannot afford to take a second look when we know that a critical cadre of public officers, such as judges, will also be affected by this?
That's why I say, if we have a system that is automatic, that look at these increments progressively, you wouldn't need to have this accumulative issue. You would have automatically know that people should be actually, their salary or their wages should be actually increased, but they had waited for this long to even review this thing. And that's why I'm saying that now, given the condition that we have found ourselves, virtually you have to borrow money to even do everything in this country. I don't think it is the right time to actually embark and implement. I hope it is just a proposal, not being implemented. Okay. Because if it is being implemented, then it will have a serious burden on the financial or the economy of the country, given the fact that virtually we have to borrow money to do everything in this country. And secondly, we are not eliminating all sorts of corruption and duplication.
Let's let him respond so that it doesn't get too long for him to respond to. Go ahead. What do you think of that?
Raf Sanjani, my good friend. I respect what you said. But the fact of the matter is, this is our constitutional responsibility. And like I said, we have not done it since 2008. I mean, a lot of Nigerians are not aware that there is a disparity. Why should any chief executive of a public office receive a salary higher than the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? This is what it is.
Any chief executive?
Yes.
Of a public office?
Of a public office.
What does the president currently receive?
You have the NCC, Port Authority, CBN governor. The severance of a CBN governor when he leaves office is higher than the severance that the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria receives. This is a fact.
What are they?
It's a lot of money. Go and research it. I mean, you are a journalist.
When you're here,
you are a journalist.
You're here, the representative.
We have a multiple structure and duplication of responsibility as far as this issue was concerned.
Are you not going to tell us?
Mohammed Adoke, who was the former Attorney General, analyzed this in 2012. Looking at the powers of Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission, and the Constitution, and he gave an opinion that our powers is not only limited to the judicial and political office holders, but to all public officers that are political appointees in Nigeria.
Yeah, but Mr. Shehu,
So,
you broached the topic about the severance package.
Yes.
You have to tell us what it is.
The severance package, I mean, what the president gets, a CBN governor get higher than what the president gets when he leaves office. You go and research it. I'll give you the template, you know. And you know what informed the commission?
No, but how do people understand what you're trying to do if you don't tell them what the figures are?
What we are trying to do is to bring on board all political and public office holders that are not captured in our previous act to be captured. I'm sure you are aware there is what we call the harmonized salary structure, where you have the compass, we have the quantis, we have the compass. There is one that is treasury funded, which is a special salary structure for places like FIRS, Bureau of Public Enterprises, Debt Management Office. We have self-funded salary structure, NNPC, NCCA, CBN, MPA. We have certain political and judicial office holders.
But but I want to ask you this, because what you have come up with right now, what you've touched on, is a very touchy issue for Nigerians.
Yes.
Salaries is one thing.
Yes.
Severance packages are another kettle of fish.
Yeah.
A number of Nigerians, and I'm sure this cuts across many classes, do not understand why our public office holders get as much as they get in terms of severance packages.
The severance package, trust me, is nothing to write home about. If you are a DJ in an organization, you spend 4 years or 8 years.
How many billions?
Huh?
How many billions?
You just get about 5 million naira. As a DG of an organization, when you are leaving, nobody is going to give you pension. Nobody is going to give you any other money. But when you are living, let's say as a DG of Standard Organization of Nigeria, for instance, when you are living, your entire severance package is not more than it's not up to 6 million.
Okay,
they just give it to you and then you go.
We need to go to break, but we'll return. He's spoken about the severance package of maybe SON DG 6 million. Maybe he'll tell us about that or the president when we return in just a moment. Stay with us.
Thank you for staying with us. Let me stay with the chairman of RMAFC for a minute. Still on that remuneration package thing that you were talking about. You referenced, for instance, the CBN governor and how much his severance is. But you were quoted as saying recently in that, at a recent media interview, the salary of a serving minister is 500,000 naira, housing allowance is 200% of the basic. I know of a deputy governor of the central bank, when he left, his gratuity was 500 million naira. That is a lifetime pension. Is that correct? Did you actually say that?
Maybe I may have said that, but I know of they have a very impressive package. You know, I don't have any qualms about that. But I don't believe that any public officer, whether of CBN or any other agency, should have a package higher than the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I think this is not good for the system. I think the President is the President, and that there has to be a way where these things are harmonized properly, where some chief executives will not get salaries higher than the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria or Governor of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. They can have other allowances, but not something higher than the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Well, it is easier to assume then that if you said that the deputy governor of a central bank received 500 million naira in severance.
Can you speak up, please?
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Can you speak up? Yeah.
I can hear you, and I hope you can hear me well. It is easy to assume then that if,
Yes.
as you said, the deputy governor of the central bank received a severance package of 0.5 billion naira, it's easy to assume that the central bank governor probably earns more in severance. But is there anything in the law, whether that's the law that sets up the CBN or RMAFC or any other one, that says that what is in those laws, those severance packages, are wrong?
Well, it not necessarily states that these things are wrong, but what we are trying to do now, these multiple salary structures, which is more like a duplication of responsibility, that we're trying to harmonize them based on the law, because a CBN governor, even though it's a professional appointment and the deputy is governor of the CBN, but these are political appointments. So they must be captured by Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission. And, you know, this should be like certain political, public, and judicial office holders' salary and allowances. So this is what my commission would like to see. The chairman or executive vice chairman of NCC, executive vice chairman of NESENI, governor of Central Bank, the boss of NNPC, the boss of customs, and all these big organizations, their salaries and their allowances and their package must be less than the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. This is what I want us to achieve, and what I want Nigerians to agree on. You know, you can give them other allowances, but certainly their salary must not be more than the salary of the president and commander-in-chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Well, Mr. Shehu,
and you know,
just a second.
This review
My sincere
is
apologies.
not only about
just one second. On that issue that you are raising,
political office holders and judicial office holders. Yes.
Just a second. On that same issue that you raised, you also said, you know, previously, before today, that the act, that is the law that sets up RMAFC, says we can get information from any agency of government, but somehow this is a very difficult exercise because some of the agencies hardly cooperate because there is no mechanism for sanction if they refuse to cooperate for enforcement. I'm wondering how this exists. Which agencies are these, if you can be a little more specific, and how come this cannot be redressed by simple, maybe, information to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, whom you seem to be speaking for now?
The act, our act, empowers us to monitor any revenue-generating agency. There were 5 that were listed, but then it says any. Apart from the NNPC, Nigerian Customs Services, the defunct DPR, which is NUPRIC, the Federal Inland Revenue, the Nigerian Customs Services, the Act states any revenue-generating agency, Immigration, NCC, Port Authority, NIMASA, NCCA, and so many others that generate, even the foreign missions outside of Nigeria, you know, they also receive some kind of revenue that accrue to them when they are outside. But when we write or we try to get information from them, it proves very, very difficult. But we are glad and happy that the National Assembly has given some enforcement powers that they propose in the new constitutional amendment, which is going around the states. And we hope at some point this thing will be ratified so that it can give us some enforcement powers. You know, the acts of setting agencies give them an opportunity and a way whereby whatever they generate They can spend what they generate, and then there is what they term operating surplus, that these people should remit that operating surplus to the Federation account or the consolidated revenue account of the federal government. But in most cases, some of these agencies, they don't. Sometimes whatever they generate, they will tell you like they have like 12 billion, 13 billion, 20 billion, and then maybe a fraction, a little bit like 5%, under 5% will be remitted back to the Federation. So we want a change of that system, whereby that type of resources that they get can be remitted to the Federation account so that it can all be shared by the 3 tiers of government, federal, state, and local government. This is what we call the revenue leakages. You know, some of the agencies, they collect VAT, they collect withholding tax, they award contracts, there are stamp duties. You have to go and knock and talk to them, and sometimes they cooperate with you, other times they don't cooperate with you. So we believe, like the DG budget has stated about 2 months ago, that Nigeria does not have a debt problem, but Nigeria has a revenue problem. These revenues are in all these other various governmental agencies. If these revenues are promptly remitted to the Federation account, Nigeria will not be in the state where it is now. This is what I'm saying, but I'm glad that the National Assembly has seen fit to really see that we get enforcement powers, and there is also another provision where a proposal was made to have Accountant General of the Federation and Accountant General of the federal government. We are grateful, and we hope that all the states, you know, in an attempt to ratify this constitutional amendment, they will go through with that. This was what the conceivers of the formation of the commission felt is necessary to have in a federation like Nigeria, so that everybody will know who is responsible for what.
Well, just one question to you before I go to Rafsanjani. You said earlier that salaries are different from allowances. Clearly, it sounds like you're saying you fix only their salaries, you don't fix their allowances. And you said that they can get allowances, but maybe, you know, you want to be in charge of the salaries. I'm wondering,
yes,
they claim that you try to clarify what happens in the National Assembly the other time, saying that their salaries aren't as much as people think that they are. But then there are allowances that many people believe are part of the same, because they get everything about the same time. Could you kindly clarify to us, what's the percentage of their allowances over the salaries that they earn in the National Assembly? A senator or a House of Representatives member, for instance.
I gave an example that in other democracies, when a person is elected a senator or member of House of Reps, he comes in and he meets already an existing structure. And that structure is that if you represent Senatorial District A, in all the offices where you have senatorial office for that senator, there is a governmental structure that takes care of that office, the salary of the persons and the people that are going to be employed in those offices, the special assistant to that particular senator, and everything down the line. The senator has nothing to do with it. It's an existing structure. This is what I know what is going on in places like Malaysia, Indonesia, United States. But the Nigerian system is such that all those packages, they are cumulatively calculated and given to the senator in question. If it's 20 million, or if it's 10 million, or if it's 13 million, the salary of the workers, the cost of operating in that office, cost of computers running, and this, is given to a senator in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. This is what we have. So this is not our own making. We take care of their salaries, period. Nigerians can ask and see how a proper structure, like is done in other democracies, can be established. Thereby, whoever wins election or loses election or who comes in can meet that particular existing structure without any money being paid to him for those particular for those individuals that are manning those offices, and let this thing be a continuous exercise. In other words, the National Assembly Commission should be in charge in terms of setting a structure all across Nigeria, which this amount of money shall not go to any senator or member of House of Reps or member of State Assembly, but it should establish those existing structure. If we have that, I'm sure Nigerians are not going to be averse to what they perceive to be a senator being given a jumbo money that he is using the money and keeping it in his pocket. You know, and I know some senators that even when they are given that pay, they have offices, you know, in various places, constituency office, they have somebody there, they have computers, they have workers that, you know, that take care of the demands of the people in those constituencies.
Well, I was actually expecting to get some specific figures, but I'll let that slide. Let me go to Mr. Rafsanjani. Something you mentioned earlier about the timeliness or otherwise of the review, which Maokwe says is, and I attempt to agree with the inflation figures, is likely to be an upward review. You said you are not sure it's a good time. I expect that that representation you would make, you know, when the consultations begin. But given our history and the fact that over time things have only gotten more expensive, cost of living has only increased over time, do you see a situation where there will be no increment? There are those who would say the corruption you fight against is only going to increase.
Well, from all indication, the beneficiary of these allowances and salaries, they are going to put pressure to ensure that they take whatever they think, you know, should be taken. But we still insist that given the financial crisis Nigeria finds itself, the timing is not the right time for this up review. We are not against giving wages and salaries that will not take care of any Nigerian worker, whether worker or public, you know, official. But what we are saying is that already when you look at each of the executive office, for example, or legislator, if you see the amount of resources going into him or her, you will see that definitely there's no fairness. When you look at the average worker in Nigeria who has been struggling, most of these people, their medical expenses are covered. Even their meals, their food are covered, transportation covered, housing covered. Everything, virtually they didn't do nothing with their income. When you look at the package that they have, they didn't really touch anything. That is outside the legitimate one. The illegitimate earnings is even more than what you can think of. And that is why we are cautioning all these things, because it is increasing the political violence and the do-or-die politics. Because when you know that if you get in there, you will get monthly income that is not even taxable. Because most of this money is not even taxable. Outside, for example, the salary they will give them, those allowances and all those kind of big money and other illegitimate earnings. Look, we need to have fundamental restructuring on the way things, systems are happening. It is not possible for us as a federating unit to have agencies running their own show as if we are not the same Nigeria. At the same time, you don't want to give autonomy you don't want to, have proper federalism in the country. If that's what you are doing at some federal government agencies, then why can't you allow states also run their own show?
So, Mr. Rafsanjani, since he says that this is a constitutional responsibility, so has the CSOs ever thought about suggesting to the lawmakers, look, let's not bring everything, since they're public officers, whether it's the perks, the allowances, bring everything under the same umbrella, so it is clear to everybody else, if we feel strongly about those perks that they earn?
You see, one of the very sad developments in our democracy in Nigeria is that under democracy, public views and opinions are supposed to be considered or taken to, ensure that legislators legislate laws that will, guarantee peace, development in our country. Sometimes there will not be even public hearing. Sometimes you call public hearing, you have a public hearing tomorrow, and you are sending the request for people to attend today. So sometimes I think it is important that we understand that public participation in legislative process is so important, and that we cannot just leave legislative work only to legislators alone. Yes, it is their constitutional right to do that, but they need input and information, credible information from the public. And sometimes that is not being done. Or you also come, you provide all sort of memorandum, you talk, you give information. Once those information that you are bringing is not what they are interested in, it will be abandoned. Now, this constitutional amendment that is lingering now at the state level, you know the reason why it cannot go. And it has been just simply a waste of public taxpayers' money exercise. We've been doing this since 1999, trying to amend the Constitution. If we are committed and serious, from 1999 to date, we would have identified those contentious issues in our country and be able to deal with them. But it's like everything is politicized. Everything where people are not getting personal benefit from it, they will sabotage it.
So what do you suggest RMAFC does now about these salaries?
What I would suggest is that let them come up with whatever proposal based on economic reality, based on our financial capability in the country. And they should not be in a hurry to implement it today, because this government is even leaving in the next, by May, they are gone. So if you want to have a system that will not be too suspicious, have your own constitutional work on it. Get input of the stakeholders. Let us be realistically have a package. And let us also consider poor Nigerian workers who are struggling with 30,000 minimum wage, who sometimes they don't even get this pay. In so many states, workers didn't get pay. I think we need to all look at this if we want to look at fairness in the whole system.
But Mr. Shea,
Now, I want to quickly take him up on the fact that he says that, our public office holders rarely do anything from their salaries. I mean, they get an allowance for almost everything. And, you've talked about how we need to compare with what is happening elsewhere. We know that in the United States, for instance, the president pays for his food. He pays for the food of his family members and guests who also come as well. So precisely what are public office holders, especially, for instance, the president, the vice president, expected to do from their salaries if we're providing everything else for them?
Well, that's exactly why we are trying to review this. We are looking at it holistically. It's not just for us, contrary to the opinion of some people that we are trying to increase their salary. No. We're looking at this thing holistically.
Yeah, but you and I know that. I mean, considering how long ago you did this, the chances that you'll be increasing it upward is very high.
We want to bring on board all political and public office holders that are captured in our act and those that have not been captured. I gave you an example of ambassadors, if you recall. If you send an ambassador who is not a career ambassador, his salary is that of a deputy director, which is what, 250 something in a foreign land. We want to stop that. He represents Nigeria. We want to also bridge that salary disparity existing among various political office holders and judicial office holders in the country. I gave you an example of judges, where I hire a judge today, A judge that had been sitting on the bench for 20 years will get the same salary with the judge that is being hired today. This is an aberration.
So what is it going to become if you bridge it?
Whatever it is, let's look at it. People like him can come and give their presentation. All other various interest groups can come. We will look at it scientifically. We will analyze. We will take a decision. And contrary to the perception of Nigerians, it's not something that can be done in a month. This thing may take 6 months, 7 months, even up to the next administration. We also want to enlighten the general public about the actual remuneration of political and judicial office holders so that they can have an understanding.
Okay.
And also, we want to make sure that, you know, there is this lawsuit about judges. You heard about it, where a court ruled that judges should be paid, what, 10 million a month or something like that? We want to take this. This is our constitutional.
For the judges, it's understandable.
We also want to, make sure that the cost of governance through a remuneration that will provide a living wage, we are not averse to people having a living wage in Nigeria. The commission is not our responsibility, but as a decent human being, I want every Nigerian that works for public or even private to have a decent wage that he can live. But it's not our responsibility. And we also want to ensure the monetization policy that is implemented. Gone are the days where when you are appointed DG, you have a big house, you have
Mr. Shehu, just a minute. Part of where we have the challenge.
A guest house.
Mr. Shehu,
you have all sorts of paraphernalia, different cars, but now it's no longer the same.
All right,
people should look into this critically. And I will provide you with what the package is so that you can analyze it and be able to educate Nigerians with this.
You understand when the public is angry about this because we've seen what has gone on with ASU. We see what goes on when it has to do with increasing the minimum wage of workers, how they tell you, oh no, there isn't money anywhere, so this can't happen. But when it has to do with increasing the salaries of political office holders, it happens naturally. They say it's from the point of law. So it's convenient and nobody usually stands in the way of that.
Nobody says Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission is out to increase the salary of lawmakers, president, governors, OC. What we said
I'm sure that
review.
At the end of the day,
you are not taking into consideration what I stated.
When this review is done, we will get back to you and see whether it's a reduction.
Absolutely.
We will. We'll see if it will be a reduction.
My friend here.
And by the way, how is RMAFC fund? I heard you say that your fund is abysmal.
Like
RMAFC, how's your source of funding?
The funding.
Is it abysmal or is it okay?
Currently, it's not okay. We get 28 million every month for overhead for a federation commission, one of the 14 constitutional commissions in Nigerian constitution.
Also,
we have our capital project for this coming year, 100 million. So we don't have a lot. We are calling on you to look at our act,
you are
to look at the constitutional, and we give all the money to states and local governments and federal government.
There you go.
I'm telling you. So we are trying to reposition the commission. We are doing whatever it takes to
while
make
we are trying to even call on you to do something about our remuneration.
So that we can do a lot to make it and think we will reach there. And people like my friend Rafsanjani.
We need to thank you for coming on.
We
want to thank both of you for coming on this morning. Our Musa Rafsanjani, Executive Director, CISLAC, and Mohammed Bello Shehu, Chairman, RMAFC now. RMAFC, whichever way. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on today.
You're welcome.
We will be back in a moment and focus on the next subject matter here today. Join us again.